Okay, we are in 1955. We just got a game against Milan, 1906. He goes e4. We're going to play Caro-Kann. So let's get it on the board. And he plays knight c3. So we'll take. He'll recapture with the knight. We'll develop our knight, challenge his knight. And then we'll take with the g-pawn if he captures. We'll take with the g-pawn, but he didn't take, so I'm guessing he probably won't take. Or he probably would have done it immediately. It's kind of weird that he's thinking though, because a 1900 definitely has, a line that they play against the Caro-Kann. So I'm not sure why he's thinking. Take it. Knight g3. But he should know which setup he goes for. So it's a bit odd. I don't mind him wasting time on such a ridiculous move though. It's been at over 30 seconds on an obvious. Okay, what is this? Queen d3. I'm unfamiliar with this. Okay, that's an odd move. Maybe he's like trying to bait this so he can check me and I lose a piece. I guess. It's a weird move. I wonder how to respond to this. Maybe just bring the other knight out and then get ready to trade knights. I'm gonna go with this. Reinforce this knight and then I'll trade if he doesn't take and get out with the tempo, play a normal game. Queen d3. What's the point of this? Is it to slide it over? Not now, but okay, now he retreats his knight. This is confusing. So he retreats his knight. Okay. He has access to this square. Is it just so my bishop doesn't develop? Not entirely sure about that. And I'm actually thinking of playing g6. There's also h5, but g6 looks nice. Stopping his knight, preparing to fianchetto. I kind of like g6, the look of it. I want to develop castle. Depending on if he castles, maybe I'll throw in like h5. I don't know. h5, h4 is their ideas, but I played this a little weird and he played this a little weird, so instead of going for that, I think I'm just going to develop fast. As fast as I can anyway. So he brings out his other knight. Makes sense. So I'm going to follow up with the natural bishop g7. I don't usually play I don't often play g6 in my Caro-Kann games. Very rarely, I think, actually. So we'll give this a try. It looks like a fine setup, considering this knight, right? I don't really know. Also, this queen kind of blocks the bishop. Although I guess the bishop is going to go here anyway now that I'm fianchettoed. I have, okay, so he doesn't castle. He might castle queenside. So he starts launching the pawns. It gives me this square, which I don't need just yet. Um, if I castle and he just pushes, I can also go here. What does this do? Gives him also a square, but it's not so big of a deal. I'm thinking of h5 here, just to stop his advance. I don't know, maybe there will be sacks in the future somewhere for him, but... Or maybe if this I can take with my knight. No, I can take with my pawn. If he takes with his knight, check. Bishop here. That still doesn't work. That's annoying. Let's just stop it. Okay. So this square, and I can jump a knight in here, controlling the bishop when it comes here. Also here. There's also getting this knight out, uncovering my bishop. I think this is like 2 moves, and then the bishop would be 3. But if I just did it this way, I can get the bishop out in 2 moves. He could play c4, but I think that's still fine. This is kind of tender now that, but he can't exactly attack it yet. He can't do sacks and get to my king somehow. He still kind of needs to develop too. This kind of looks natural, prepares long castling. But in that case, I'll go here because it comes with tempo. And then if he moves it in the middle, I'll take it with the knight. And if he moves it like, it's okay, so he develops it here, which takes away that square from his knight, so that's okay. I could move my knight in here and here. I could ignore this. I can ignore this. Oh yeah, my light squared bishop is what I wanted to get out, so let's see. Ignoring looks good. This doesn't look... It does stop long castling, actually. Whereas if I just do this, and he long castles, and then I go here, I mean, what's the big deal? But if I put this knight here, and maybe this knight here, so I'm thinking this stops long castling, which is kind of annoying for him. But then this re-prepares long castling. But I can always kick it with a pawn, which looks funny, but I think it works. Let me go here, put my knight on a semi-outpost. Make him have to do something about this pawn. I'm also keeping my eye on these squares for my queen. What else is here? He still hasn't played c3, so this pawn is a little tender. This knight... Which way should it go? Or maybe... Yeah, I wonder if, like, queen a5... I'm not sure. Queen a5, what if he just goes back? Where do I want my queen then? Then I attack a pawn? Then he somehow defends it, but then I also can't play b6 and get my bishop out like I wanted. I wanted to go queen a5 and like, I don't know, b6, bishop a6 ideas, but I don't think that ever works really. For a lot of reasons, probably. And moving this knight does put another attacker on the pawn, although it is adequately defended. And if this knight does get here, I mean, he could try to kick it, but not if he castles that way. So now he may castle short. He develops his bishop, prepares short castle, x-rays my knight. Okay. So now I'm thinking of improving this piece. If I go here, he's likely to just stop it, and then what's it doing there? I think this is the right approach. Also stopping knight jumps. So let's develop and open up our light square bishop as well. It does block our this, but it can also jump in here. And then once he kicks it, it has options. Here, if I can put my queen, maybe support this square, force the trade, get my queen in here, that could be nice. This can't go here yet because of this knight. This isn't worth playing. This, it's interesting if I want to get it here. But I don't see the point of that, because trading doesn't look good for me. Like particularly good. Like I don't see a point to doing that. My bishop is already hitting these squares from where it is. It doesn't look like it can ever come out this way, but b6, or once I'm castled, b5 with bishop b7, c5 ideas. You know, like b5, bishop b7, queen c7 or b6, c5. You know, that's all possible, but I don't know if I'm gonna have time for any of that. I think stuff's gonna go down pretty soon. There's just way too many minor pieces right here. Yeah, and he's not gonna be able to just leave that. He's gonna want to do something. Here it is. Okay, he's bringing a knight to the center. He's opening up his bishop. I can take it. If I take a piece, he has to take a piece. He can take the knight with the bishop, but it doesn't really work because I think I end up with a pawn after that. So if I take a knight and he takes a knight, I take a knight, he takes a knight, I go check. He, even if he moves his king, or if he blocks with any piece, I can take his pawn. My queen will be in the middle of the board, but now my bishop's also opened up. That looks kind of spicy, right? Knight takes knight, and if bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, bishop takes, and I'm up a pawn. So knight takes, pawn takes. I mean, I could even take the queens and go knight d5, but I think this just wins the pawn. The queen has no infiltration. And then once I develop slight square bishop and castle, or just put a rook on d8. Let's do that. And I think this queen a5 resource might have just been huge. Unless I'm missing something, which is possible. Although he's not castled and I'm not castled, so... And he doesn't have any rooks here, so it's not like he can can checkmate me just yet. I am one move away from castling, as well as just moving my bishop, right, anywhere. And now my rook protects this square. He has no checks because of this pawn. Ah, he can block with the queen this way. I did not see this. I don't think it's good for him. I think it's just terrible for him with his bishop eyeing that, but I can no longer take the pawn. If I move any piece but the queen hangs. It would be nice if I had a bishop to put here. So basically, I think I'm just going to take and plop a knight in and just say I'm way better. And I'm basically completely winning. This might even be better than just giving me the pawn. Because I think this might... Now, if I go here, I'm attacking two pawns. So I win a pawn and your structure's worse, I think, right? So this is under attack. So you're going to move it. This is dumb, this is dumb, this is dumb. So this is supernatural. And I mean that as two different words. Super space natural. And material is even. My knight's way better than his knight, although he in one move he can put it here and make his knight a lot better than what it is now. But still, my knight's better because it's targeting this immediately. And if he responds with this, I take a pawn. He gets a knight. I get this, he castles. And I just go back or something here. So I don't think that works for him. Unless this, he moves the rook. And then I move my knights here. And he can't create threats. He can't target this pawn a second time because this isn't a move and he has no other pieces. If he ever even did target it, I could always push it without queens on the board. My dark squares aren't, like this isn't so scary like it would be with queens. Also, there's stuff protecting that square. So black is definitely much better here. Now all I have to do is convert, take this guy's 7 points, get to 1962, and we'll call it a day. I actually had a lot of fun trying out this G6 line. I never get to play G6, but I really like G6 as a move just in general. I know you can't just play moves in general, but I like the concept and the feel of it in so many positions. G6. H5 not so much because it weakens it, but H5 is also such a good move in so many positions. And even though I haven't moved this bishop, it's still developed. It's only not developed in the sense it's blocking my rook's connection. So in that case, you would need to move it, but as far as being controlling like effective squares, it's nice here. So he castles, hangs both pawns. I'm not sure that that was the right move. I'm not sure you could have done anything. It's not like you can protect either pawn. I mean, but now, if I take this, his bishop is hanging. His bishop can move, but not while creating threats, which means I get another turn. Which means I would have this. Alternatively, if I take this first, his bishop doesn't have to move. He'll probably move a rook. This pawn's hanging. So let's say I take this and he doesn't want to lose this. He can't move it, but he can try to defend it this way. But then I will take the pawn anyway. I'm not sure which pawn is better to take first. So like here, here, or here. and then this, and then he has some tricks. So let's take this first. Let's take the central pawn, leave the garbage pawns. Also this to ruin his structure if I want even further, but I don't want. I want to take another pawn and solidify my position into just no counterplay. Basically, once he realizes he has zero counterplay, he'll resign. So I'll try to arrange that. F6 even, because he can't go here, he can't go here. This is kind of ugly, although is a move. And then there's this, which also blocks files for his rooks, and trying to defend this, and you just leave it there, leave his bishop out of the game. My king can go to f7, although he's got a light square bishop, although I have a light square bishop. If I can, I'm gonna trade this, then f6 hangs this pawn. There's some ideas, lots of ideas. I'm just up a clean pawn. So if I just trade everything, okay, so he pushes this, which I do not understand, considering this situation. Shouldn't he have moved this rook somewhere off of the dark diagonal? What? I guess he's just going for like Hail Marys, but if I take with the knight, he gets a bishop, I get a bishop, he gets a knight, so that doesn't work. I might as well take a second pawn with tempo. He's gonna go here, but then he loses the rook, so he can't go there. And if he doesn't go there, I get a free check. I can jump in here. This is just disaster for white. It's over. It's over. Unless I blunder a piece, basically, it's you can see. Look at the dark squares. And now because he played f4, his bishop can never go back to protect the dark squares. It's stuck here. And now I have f6 actually. He trapped his own bishop. But wait, he also hangs both of so many things. I can fork his rooks. I can trap his bishop. I feel like trapping the bishop is more brutal and more like what's the word? It'll put him in more dismay. He'll be dejected once I play f6. Because if I put my knight here, maybe he'll like do this. I'll get a rook. He can't even take the bishop. So if I get a rook and he gets a knight, then I retreat. But in this case, if I just go here and he attacks my bishop, then have to move it off of, well, not off this diagonal, but, well, maybe off this diagonal because of the other rook. So let's say I move it somewhere, just a random, whatever. Wait, so what was I calculating? This, something like here. And then if T takes, I can take with the knight. I don't have to ruin my pawn, my king protection, although, let's say I do. He puts a rook, I move. That's not so bad either, but this looks cleaner since I'm up 2 pawns. And f6 not going anywhere, so I might as well take the rook. He may resign. I doubt he walked into this on purpose. He definitely just wanted to stop my check, so he put a rook here. Which is the first move that came to my mind, but then I saw the fork, so he might just resign here. He probably had to just go here, and then I would have played f6 and he would have lost this piece. And you can't even put a rook here because of this guy. This is so... He can't do anything. His only like move is this. But that doesn't do anything. Okay, cool. So I feel good about this. Who said you need to castle? This is just... He has no checks other than sacking the rook. His knight moves only threaten a piece. So maybe that's even his best move. So let's say he threatens the bishop. But then I'll just bring it back and his rooks are still hanging. He doesn't get the bishop. So it still might be the best move just to improve the knight and then make it your turn again. Because I can't go here. And I can't create threats. I would just go back here. F5. I can honestly say I did not consider F5. I'm going to take this rook immediately. Because if I take this one, he can just ignore the knight. And the knight's not actually threatening anything. But if I take this one, he can't ignore the knight because it threatens another piece. So he has to, let's say, take it back. If he takes it back with this, I get free checks. He's also opening this. He also freed his bishop from the F6 trap. So if I take here and he takes here, I mean, what's his threat after this? There's nothing. There's also the bishop hitting it. Let me just take a rook. Because why not? I kind of want to castle queenside. If possible. Okay. What if I play F6? And he goes somewhere. Then G5 doesn't do anything. Because he just takes it. I could immediately dislodge the knight. If he defends it, I'll just take it. And if he moves it, I'll take this pawn. And is it worth throwing in a check and putting the king somewhere? Well, here the knight's pinned, and here it looks generally good to kick it away. So I think just as a finesse, he can't intercept. Let's throw this in, and then we'll hit the knight. And he can't really take, because if I take the knight, and then he takes with check, I blockade the pawn. The rook also guards that square. So if he does this, I take it. If he goes here, I take it. And my next move would be here, so I think. He's deciding which move. Either the corner or a pin. He goes for the pin, which I'm actually excited about because now I'm guaranteed to get the knight or the bishop. So if I go here and he takes this pawn, oh, I see, but I also lost this tempo because now it's defended. Interesting. So if I go here and he takes my pawn and then just check, and then I take, this pawn's weak. If I start with f6 and he moves his bishop away somewhere, I can always just take this pawn. And then if he takes me, I can take him and support it with e6. I can also take this pawn immediately, meaning he would be forced to take here if he wants to do anything. At which point I would take here. And if he took here, no, that looks bad. No, I mean, not bad, but just unnecessary. Kind of thinking f6, although my light squares get kind of weak. If I just castle, actually, and then if he takes and I take, our rooks are staring each other down, and this check can be met by e6. I'm just gonna castle. I don't know why I didn't consider that. Maybe last move I shouldn't have thrown in the check. Maybe I should have gone here directly because his knight's undefended. Whereas now, if I did that, it's defended, so he doesn't have to move it. So it gives him time to take. And then if I throw this in, it creates weaknesses I don't need. I am up a lot, but still. Just castle. This diagonal is still here. There's still pressure. Now my rooks will be connected. If I... Okay. So he takes my pawn. Now, if this looks normal, oh, I see, he's threatening this. If I throw this in, it doesn't do anything. So takes, takes. I'll just take his rook, and I'll be up 3. This knight's not coming, and the bishop. So this thing is a little loose, but I'm kind of spoiling this a little, but that's okay. With 2 minutes, I'm not trying to play perfect chess. I'm just trying to make somewhat reasonable moves. I feel like this has to be a good move. And then I could throw in a check. I think developing this bishop with tempo and threatening, although he is threatening checks, which don't actually matter because once I get here, it does. Hold on, I have a little bit of time. I think this is a good move. Hitting this pawn and getting ready to develop my rook. He can throw in this check, but after here, doesn't do anything other than get out of this tactic. So maybe I even throw in the king move first, so he doesn't have the check. Okay. He throws in the check. My bishop covers this diagonal. If his knight moves here, I'll pin it, give him the bishop pair, and play that endgame up 2 pawns. If I could... Oh wait, I'm not up 2 pawns. I'm up an exchange and a pawn. Yeah. If I could trade the bishops, rook versus knight is easy. So if I can just get his bishops off the board, at least let me trade the light one because I have a dark one. I could just keep it nice and close. He can defend, he can try to trade. All trades are welcome. He doesn't want to trade, maybe he'll go here, but then maybe I just attack him. Then he defends. Then I just bring my rook in, his bishop has to go somewhere, and I double attack this. So he goes for the trade. I don't see how the trades can be bad for me when I'm up this much. So takes here. He has to move it doesn't even matter where. And then I attack the pawn. He can't defend it. So it looks like everything collapses probably. Now I infiltrate. He goes this way. Hold on, let me think for 1 second. So if I go here, I'm hitting his pawn. He can move his pawn, but who cares? This also traps his knight. His knight can go here, but that's fine. He can't right now because he's going to lose a pawn. I actually can't attack this guy from these squares, so I would have to do this. had not considered this, but now if I go here, he can't move his knight to attack the rook. He doesn't have any checks, so I'll have to trade again. One of his... Wait, what? Yeah, if I go here, he has to take with his bishop. Otherwise, he loses the knight because he has no intermezzos with either piece. See, it's annoying. You have to calculate, does the knight have any moves? Does the bishop have any moves in between that ruin this? And with such low time, and then if it does, there we go. He just resigns. +7. Okay. 28 move game. Let's go. Game review. 96%. 96% without opening theory. Opening theory up to move what, 3? So I played like a 2750. Suck on that. I really am bad at chess though. I'm just looking for mistakes. Okay, so the engine doesn't want me to retry any moves. However, after I do the regular game review, I do a move by move review. Because there are things I'm curious about when I was playing and I want to see. So this is weird. Okay, apparently Queen D3 is the move. I just don't know any theories, so it looked weird to me. I thought knight takes f6 or knight g3, but apparently Queen D3 is the move, which is what he played. And black... Okay, so my move is also normal. Then he retreats, which I wasn't sure why he did because it was protected. And if you were going to retreat, why didn't you retreat last move? So you have the square for the bishop. I don't know. Maybe it's some theory or something, but it looks weird to me. So they're saying here e5. Oh, I always forget about that trick. I always forget about the queen a5 and pick up the pawn. Because you obviously don't want to take with the knight and then get this endgame. I always forget about that. Although e5 leads to totally different positions than the usual Caro-Kann stuff. They're completely different. Although you equalize a lot quicker as black, I feel like. So what else? e5, e6, b6. Okay. e6 seems unnecessary to block in the bishop, which is why I played g6, which they also say is the same thing. They just didn't list it. Okay. He develops, I develop. He starts an assault. I stop the assault. Now if I just castle and he pushes, e5, h takes, h takes. Out of curiosity, we can win it a number of ways. And there's, I guess it's not super scary, but I don't see a reason not to play h5, right? This isn't a weak, you can't sack on it anytime soon, so, well, I guess it's the best move, so that's fine, that makes sense. So in this position, normal moves, developing, castling, knight f8, knight f8 to knight e6 probably. Hitting the bishop, pressuring the pawn. I like that move. But as I can still develop further, I prefer to develop further. What's his response to queen b6? Queen b3. Yeah, goes for the queen trade. Figured as much. Not a bad move then, if that's his response. Can't be bad for you. So I played knight g4 in order to stop him from castling. They're saying c5 and oops, and on take you still have the queen a5 trick. You also have queen c7, and he can't really protect. He can, but inducing this is super dumb for him. So okay, c5, but still gotta improve my pieces first. I don't like opening stuff up that early. Okay, so I go here, and he can just develop. So in this position, knight f8 again, same idea. I don't think I've seen this. It's interesting though. It hits a lot of good squares. Does block the bishop though. There's also queen c7 and a5. Typical moves. Me, I developed a piece and opened up my bishop because why am I playing a5 when my bishop's crying? So I went here to increase its prospects and this guy's prospects. Now they're saying blunder. Yeah, I thought everything was, normal till here, and when he saw this, I also said blunder, and I also thought I was winning because of the take and queen a5 idea. But it looks natural enough. It looks aggressive, like it's supported, attacking stuff. And if you calculate takes, takes, looks good for white. It looks good for white. Jump the knight in here, c4, something like that. But if that's only if you miss queen a5 check. Double attack the king and the pawn. You can also start with this. The only thing is, if you start with this and he goes with his bishop back, you have to move your queen again. So like here, here, and what, queen b6 or c7. Either way, then he can start taking stuff and you're not actually up anything. There's no advantage there. So if you want the advantage, you got to do what I did, which was take. Then you got to pick up the pawn. Or if he does this, that's what I was saying. I didn't even see queen c3, but I noticed that if he blocked this way, or moved his king, I would take the pawn. I didn't even consider this as a move, which is, I realized that even though I don't get this pawn right away, it has to be worse because look at that structure. At least if I take this, you play c3, or you play c3 right now, you create this like blockade against my bishop. Yeah, you're down a pawn, but whatever, you play. But what he did in the game here, now you don't play because you can't play this structure against this bishop. I don't think, especially with the knight here. It's just, I would say that this -1, I would just say it's completely lost for white if a good player is with black. Not me, but a good player. I would say this -1 is the same as -6 here. It's just over, but that's just me. Okay, so bishop takes c5 is the smarter option. I'm glad I chose that. And then I thought this was just wiling out, straight wiling. Um, yeah, which it was. They wanted him to improve this bishop for obvious reasons. It's a pretty decent bishop. Probably belongs here, maybe here. Could really use a queen, but still, this isn't a bad diagonal for it, right? Yeah, it might get kicked around, but this just looked awful because now I take another pawn, and he probably has to go here. He goes here. They're saying it at this point doesn't even matter if and they like the exact look -3.05 for f6 and this move, and I said I couldn't determine which one was more accurate, and this is why. So I did go for this one, saying let me just pick up the rook. I thought he would go rook d3, which is what they're suggesting, but he went here, which I guess is kind of the same thing because you'll just lose a rook and pick up a piece no matter what. I took the appropriate rook, and then here, f6 immediately, which I did look at, bishop d4 check, and bishop e5. Yeah, so f6 is just a little more, um, it's just a nice move because if you can get his bishop here, it blocks the rook. So once you take this pawn, his rook no longer stares at it. So if he takes it with the knight, he'll have to move his bishop out of the way, and then you have time for e6, and he has nothing. That's all. This is all his counterplay, the f file. But I threw in the check. It's fine. And again, f6 looks good. What else looks good? Bishop takes f5 looks good. G takes f5. All of these are fine because if he wants to get an attack, he has to take the knight, which trades another piece to bring the rook in. And then black should be able to hold, but since I was low on time, I didn't feel like trying to not give away my advantage. Like, I, sometimes I blunder my advantage away. I let it slip, 0.3 at a time. And, he picks up a pawn here, a pawn there, and that's your advantage. So I didn't want to get into those, so I just castled, right? Because I know that if he has to trade not just a minor piece, but if he has to trade the rook, which is what castling necessitates, I mean, he can move the rook, but then it just gives me another tempo, and then it's really just, it's over for him. So now, yeah, see how the bar just jumps? Because once he has the rook, now it's just over. It's just, I go here, and then I just finesse, easy basic moves, obvious moves, and that's it. He'll probably report me for this game. 96% accuracy, but I don't care. That's a good game. We are now at 1962, which may be a new high for us. But either way, we won, and we're going to keep on trucking. And I plan on trying a new opening I've never played before um, against White's 1d4. So I'm going to start learning that in game if we ever get it on board. See you next time.